Right
oh,
there.
right.
He's got
Okay.
that book.
Okay.
Come on in, everybody. We see you in the hall. You can come in. It's all right. There's chairs in the front. Come on in. Refreshments. We would have had refreshments if Scott Rosema had shown up. He was supposed to bring the donuts and the coffee this morning. He said, I'll be there. And
Bloody
he's not here yet. Brian K. Morris.
I bet he's on somebody's most wanted poster, isn't he?
Well, he is. I haven't seen Scott in a while.
Astros won the World Series last night, so there's not a whole lot left to bet on at the moment. So.
What does that mean?
Well,
exactly.
Now we won't get to find out what they have researched recently with the World Series and the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah.
Because they said every time the Philadelphia Phillies won the World Series, there was like a great recession that happened shortly after.
Wow.
So it's their fault.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to miss this one then. Maybe every time they're in the series in general, something disastrous happens. We'll just all urban myths and hokum, pretty much. Come on in. It's time for the Sunday Funnies for the 6th. Is it the 6th? Holy crap. 6th of November already.
Flying by.
We want to talk about the stories that we love. The comic stories that we love, not necessarily our own stories. Let's not be, Oh,
that's me. I'll see you later.
That egotistical. Well, yeah, let's Russ out. He's done. Yeah. He did all the great stories.
I have 6 lined up. I have six stories.
How many of them are yours?
None.
Yeah, there we go. That's awesome. All right. We got a little bit of legalese we need to run now at the front, so that we can avoid any trouble here going to the Indy Comics Network, and then we'll run the opening. We'll be right back.
The views and opinions expressed within the video content found on the Indy Comics Network are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Indy Comics Network or its sponsors.
That was the legalese. I thought it was more. And there we go. I just showed you a bunch of my favorite stories right there at the opening.
I missed the Halloween laugh already.
Do you? Yeah. Wait until you see the Comics by Night opening I cut yesterday. You will enjoy it.
Doesn't that Kirby cover just knock all the rest out of the park?
In your mind, perhaps.
With the surfer. When you put it on.
Yeah. It's just that good of it's just a phenomenal cover. That's the big thing. But the Uncle Scrooge cover that slides by is Uncle Scrooge number 14, and that's probably my favorite comic story, and I've told everybody about it before. That's the 24-karat moon story with Uncle Scrooge, Donald, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, the Beagle Boys, and a couple of other salty characters, I guess would be the easy way to describe it, who all try to race to a moon that's on the other side of our moon that's made out of 24-karat gold. It's a great space race, and it was really the some of the inspiration for Tales from the Anniversary.
I tried to find it for you, man. I really did. I was looking through everything. I went through every box, man.
I've got the original book that I saw it in, which was the I don't think I have it on this backdrop. The Walt Disney Comics Walt Disney Comics Digest is what they called it. I think it was number 3. It's got Pinocchio on the cover. It's in there in its entirety, only it's digest size. But I also have it reprinted in the Carl Barks library that Russ Cockrum did in black and white. He did a series of once he got done doing the EC reprint books that I showed here a couple of weeks ago. Go back and look at the formats. I just showed a couple of books out of that last week for the Halloween special. But once he was done doing the EC volumes, he went to the Carl Barks estate and did a set of Carl Barks books where he reprinted all of the Duck stories from the Comics and Stories comic and from the Uncle Scrooge series that Barks did, and they're all just amazing, adventurous stuff. It's just fantastic. Hi, Mitch. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How is everybody?
Good, good.
Morning.
We're going to have a full house today. So
Morning, Mitch.
Rosema still might not be here. We're not sure. So he might show up later. I don't know.
We don't need no Rosema.
Yeah. There we are.
He's a space ghost. Yep.
He's a space.
Space Ghost.
And in case you don't know who we are, let's do a quick introduction. I'm Randy Zimmerman, your host. I've been doing alternative and independent comics for decades. Started with Tales, actually started before Tales from the Anniversary from Arrow Comics back in 1985. Was doing short stories and freelanced all sorts of independent work and alternative work for many, many decades. Done just about everything in this business that you can imagine, except for work directly for the big two. So, or the big dogs, I guess you would call them. They're not really that big anymore. Their numbers are shrinking. They're just the corporations that run them are big. So, but anyway, we're here to talk about our favorite comic stories. And also joining me today is Mr. Glenn Fleming. Glenn, introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, my name is Glenn Fleming. I'm a writer, artist and publisher. I publish lots of books like this, My Trip to Easter Island. You got adult humor, science fiction, more science fiction, a book about my dad's jump into hell on D-Day. I write and draw children's books.
I should have had you blown up this whole time so folks can see those covers properly. Here you go.
Okay, there you go. That's my children's book, part 1. This is the book about my dad's jump into Normandy on D-Day. I write science fiction books. I write this adult humor book. And I like to travel around the world a bit. And I've written this one about Easter Island, My Trip to Easter Island.
There you go.
But relevant to this show, I recently published this book, which is about my trip to see Jack Kirby at his home. And you get this book from me, and with it, you get a DVD of me talking to Jack Kirby in his studio. I write and draw this guy, my character Hatch, and book 2 is coming out soon. I'll give you a quick show of the cover. This is issue 2 cover.
So good.
That's coming out soon.
Absolute fun.
So great.
Lots of other stuff, and I spent 40 years in graphics as well while I was doing all that. So, done a few things.
And since you've been talking, tell us your favorite comic story.
My favorite comic story is this wonderful piece that everybody knows that I like, but you have asked me, so I will show you if I can find it. It is Fantastic Four 51. This Man, This Monster, which I think is the greatest comic story ever told. Certainly my favorite. Everything in there comes together perfectly for me. The writing, the art, the inking, the lettering, everything comes together in that. I think it's from September '66. It's quite old book, but it's the best comic book I've ever read. That's just my opinion.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Also joining us is Russ Leach. Russ, how you doing?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
you're fine.
Yes. Okay. I'm having some technical issues. It's called being old. Yeah, I'm a comic book artist from the UK. Unlike Glenn, I don't have a plethora of amazing creations. I just draw pictures for money. That's my thing.
So do I. That's what I do.
Yeah. So you can find me all over the place. I've got some books from Marcosia. Since we're showing off books, before I show off my favorite stories, there's books from Marcosia, two horror books, science fiction. You can pick up this from Arrow Comics, which you can find this over at Indiegogo. That's Only Death Can Save Us. Or you can pick up the latest version of that from New Haven Publishing on Amazon. Also in the pages of Batman currently in Brazil, Italy, Germany, and France, and the UK. Yeah, you can find out about all those things over at russleach.com. That's me.
So good.
And your favorite comic story?
Oh,
Or
wow.
one of them at least?
I've got 6 here. I think probably the one that hits me most is the coming of Galactus in Fantastic Four with the Overmind story, where the Overmind came and foretold Galactus coming, and then eventually you got the Archangel Gabriel who blew the horn, and he was the Galactus's what's it called?
Herald.
The thingy Herald. That's it.
Yes.
And Galactus turned up. So that whole run, it was several stories, but it was kind of one sweep. In
That was
Fantastic Four.
That's a pretty
That
good
was
one.
his second return, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that was drawn by John Buscema and inked by Joe Sinnott, and that probably had the biggest effect on me from a art perspective. But I just loved it, and it was in the pages of Captain Britain, which is also one of my favorites as well. So it was being reprinted when I was a kid. Absolutely loved it.
Didn't know what hit you. Yeah.
No, I didn't know exactly. It just absolutely belted me. And then also there was like something else I don't have out here, but there was Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. by Steranko, and then there was more Avengers stuff. So it was an utter tidal wave of creativity. But that one stands out as one of my favorite runs. Yeah, I've got 6 up here when we get to my turn.
We could probably do an entire episode of Sunday Funnies just on what your favorite Fantastic Four story was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's its own genre.
There have been so many, and there's been so many of them that are iconic. That it's just amazing. For me, growing up, it Marvel Triple Action, Marvel Greatest Comics. Sorry, excuse me. Was a reprint book that Marvel was doing. Marvel was reprinting their stuff over here too. Once they got the space available on the comic rack,
right?
They started reprinting a bunch of things. That's where Marvel Tales came from. Marvel Triple Action, a lot of those titles that just went through and started at a point in a series history and just kept reprinting them every issue because they were selling at just as well as what they were originally back during those days. In Marvel's Greatest Comics, there was a 3-part reprinted story of where Dr. Doom steals the Silver Surfer's powers.
Oh yeah, that was.
And as a kid, that was really my first exposure, not just to the FF, but to Dr. Doom and to Silver Surfer, and it was so crazy and so amazing that you had to learn more, and then you just started eating everything up and catching whatever issue you could find in whatever direction, at garage sales or whatever, until you read most of the history. Plus, at that point, the FF was also popping up as a cartoon on Saturday morning. And that was a major thing too. Oh, here's a comic book about these guys that I saw on Saturday morning, so I'll read that. But that and all of that happened back during a time when I wasn't allowed to have comics, superhero comics, in my house because my parents had banned them from me.
It's difficult to overplay that 30-year stretch.
Yeah,
of just how important Marvel was.
Yeah,
and DC obviously, but both of them were, and the things that they were pumping out over that, like from the like late 50s into the 80s, and that just thinking about it gives me shivers because it just meant so much to me as a kid,
literally,
and a young man. It's
literally a level of imagination that's reverberated all around the world. You see it in modern art, you see it in movies now. I don't think that like books like 2000 AD would have come out and have been as big as they were if those books hadn't been out originally and influencing all of these kids growing up.
No, all roads lead back to Kirby.
It does.
Sure. That's
it
truth,
does when
man.
it comes to sequential art, as especially superhero sequential art. Literally goes back to Kirby, literally back to the Marvels. And then DC was always known for trying to chase Marvel's tail. After that, they were constantly going picking up the stuff that Marvel was doing and trying to do their best to be part of that. And you got another great wave of imagination off of that. You got Deadman and all of these characters that DC hardly even touches nowadays. That it's really irritating if you know who these characters are and you see all of the main icons, the big icons that they're doing on the screen, stumbling over themselves when it's like, dude, just sit down and do Deadman. It's cheap. It's about a guy who goes around and possesses other people's body. You have to do a flying effect. You have to fly him into somebody's body. They do it all the time. Those type of optical effects. How come they're not doing Deadman? Don't know. Just crazy.
Didn't they do, wasn't that TV program with Scott Bakula? Wasn't that kind of a Deadman thing where he used to go in time and be somewhere else?
Yeah. Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
The remake, it's horrible.
Yeah, I was about to say they're in the process of ruining that now. So.
Yeah. Oh no, they've already ruined it. It's already like halfway through its first season.
God,
it's a mess. I watched the pilot. I'm like, okay.
Right, we need to
I,
do the
I
rest
wasn't
of
that
the.
crazy about Quantum Leap to start with, though.
We need to do the rest of the squares.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
We
we
need to
could
do the
have.
rest of the squares. The funny,
Yeah.
the funny one in down the bottom corner, that like the guy that knows so much, like Joe, Ted, the most entertaining man in the world. Come on,
Oh,
get
thank
them,
you.
get them in,
Appreciate
get them in.
I'll use that hashtag. Let me write that down. Good.
Well, believe me, I sent out links, and I figured we'd have more than our usual group this morning because of daylight savings time.
Hmm.
People waking up at like 8 a.m. thinking it was 9 and going, "What am I going to do?" And hey, I'll come on. So, Mitch,
Yes.
happy to have you on a Sunday.
Thank you.
You've been on Sunday Funnies before, though, haven't you?
Yeah. I was on last week, I think.
Yeah, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mitch
Oh,
Rogers.
yeah, of course you were on last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Hi, I'm Mitch
offense.
Rogers. Yeah.
You're still Mitch Rogers.
You're still Mitch.
Yes. I'm the creator, writer, artist, and publisher of The Boger, the second trade paperback.
Hang on. I'm blowing you up here. Boom.
Okay.
There you go.
The second trade paperback, Southern Gothic's now available for purchase. And probably my favorite comic book story of all time is James O'Barr's The Crow.
Oh, cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Great
good. Cool.
Had a deep influence on your youth?
Oh yeah, especially my high school teenage years because they reprinted it,
Mhm.
and that was the first time I really got into it. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Cool. Did it make you a fan of Joy Division?
Not so much,
It's
but
gonna take more than that.
yeah. Made me a fan of The Cure though, so there's that.
Okay.
That's cool.
Good start.
You're funny, Russ. and dead on.
That's what they say.
That cover you showed there, Mitch,
Anyway.
is just reminded me of that from Dave Gibbons. That cover of that
Yeah.
Oh,
Crow
yeah.
book.
Yeah, from
Oh, yeah.
Watchmen.
Close to it. Yeah. Yeah. So,
That,
what
that
issue
came
is
along
that,
later,
too?
though.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, their cartoon kayfabe likes to pull up a lot of comics from that particular era that they call the outlaw era of comics,
Mhm.
because they were so gritty and almost punky in their mind. So, and
Nope.
I know. Whenever I'm on a show, he wants to be.
Yep.
in my
You're in
lap.
front of the camera. I want to be in front of the camera too. Yeah. Every
Yeah,
time they
right,
do
right.
that, I grimace and I look at it and I either turn it off real quick or I watch it out of fear that they're going to talk about how bad the lettering job was, because I ended up lettering a lot of that stuff. Just atrocious. Ted.
Yeah.
Also with us today is Ted Davies. Ted, introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. My name's Ted Davies. I'm an artist and author, best known for my books, That Side Retrieve and Grim 101 book series. And I also publish with the man, I think, right somewhere around here, Comics Unlimited. He told all about the other books he did, but didn't talk about Comics Unlimited, which we've got on Glenn B.
left that to
Fleming's
you.
Amazon page. My turn, bud.
Yeah.
Amazon page. And you can find it there. I thought I'd use Russ Leach's
Thank you
cover
very
here.
much.
Yeah, no problem, man. We actually got Sin Killer in here too, if I'm not mistaken. Marv, you're in this too, and so's Jody, John Celestri. All kinds of people are in this. So check out everything that we're doing on Amazon with on Glenn B. Fleming's site. You can find them all on digital or on publishing. But yeah, I do all kinds of stuff. So thank you for inviting me again today. I guess
Yeah,
I'm
thanks
doing
for
okay.
reminding me about the chat. I've been ignoring them again. Sorry about that. Sarah in the house. Good morning.
All right,
Morning,
Sarah.
Sarah.
Marby says greetings, sinners. Sarah says hi. Everybody says hi. Hi, Rich Perota. Hey, Rich Perota.
Yep.
Rich Perota in the house.
Here.
Says, I don't see Scott. No, Marby, I'm sorry. He hasn't made it yet. So
No one sees Scott. Not until
Nobody
it's
sees
not
Scott.
until it's too late.
no one expects the Scott Roseman.
The elusive Scott Roseman.
Brett Cantrell. Hey, bud. Let me know when your next show is, so maybe I can drop in and be as blatantly offensive as I usually am. Okay. Sarah says, Glenn, Ted, everyone else missed you guys. Says, so what you're saying is that you haven't done anything, Glenn? Amazing work.
Yeah,
me
lots
for
I
just-
haven't done, sadly.
Excuse me for just a second. Glenn and Ted, keep talking.
It's Ted's turn.
Well, Glenn's pretty prolific. So in Wikipedia, That's his picture. You just look it up on Google. Just right
Sorry, I had to clear my throat there. Didn't want everybody.
Yeah,
to hear.
and for a second, you turn into C. Michael Lanning.
I know. I'll change that right now. Oh, I'm still C. Michael Lanning. Oh no.
Wow.
Oh no.
Wow.
Took some doing.
There we go.
There you go. Oof, man.
That's actually me as fearless leader.
Sweet. I'm about to say
Cool.
fearless leader for Rocky and Bullwinkle.
There we go. Yep. I figured we shared the same scar, so it's all good. Joe, introduce yourself. Last but not least, Joe D. McPhee.
Yes, I am Joe D. McPhee. I am the president of Exigency Studios. I am the writer, creator of such books like Amazonia, which is the last issue that came out. It's issue number 7. I have all 4 versions of that right here in my hand. And the reason my head was down is because in my handy dandy sketchbook, I always sketch ideas and future story type items in the sketchbook, and this is where I'm at as of right now. What they have to do is just add kind of like a little bit of a plot, and I will be done for this daily sketch here. I also am sometime contributing writer to Comics Unlimited. I have so far, I think, 3 or 4 articles in Comics Unlimited up to this point as of right now.
Yep, 3, I think.
Yep. So, part-time contributor to that. And I also have my own little podcast called From the Death of a Small Press Publisher, where you can see me either talk about comics, introduce different people who are crowdfunding, or actually see me do work in Dodge Studio or stuff like what I do in my sketchbook. Now, to keep on the theme of everything else, I'm just going to mention 2 of my favorite stories of all time here.
There we go.
First one, and this is either number 1 or number 2 on my all-time list here, is X-Men God Love, Man Kills.
Yep, that's a great one.
One of the greatest Claremont stories ever. Now, in my top 5, and surprisingly enough, most people would never guessed it, it is Bernie Wrightson. The
sweet.
Thing.
I have that.
The ending. I love the ending of this book so
fabulous.
much that it makes me laugh every time I see it.
And that's
Joe, you nailed it.
Book that hardly nobody talks about anymore.
That's fantastic, Joe.
It's a wonderful, wonderful book.
Yep.
Beautiful book.
Now, the third one that I want to mention, but I don't have it on hand with me, is Wonder Woman 204.
I was going to say, you got to bring Wonder Woman into this, bro.
Wonder Woman 204, when Diana finds out that she's not the only true Wonder Woman. And it was the origin of Nubia, and the fact that she actually had a twin.
Damn. Glenn's reaction there. Every hero has a twin.
Oh my god. Anyway,
but the way that they explained it was so hokey of how they explain it, but the results of it, because they did, like, I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd contest on Themyscira, and Nubia shows up, and Hippolyta had to stop the contest because Nubia was going to kill Diana, because because she wouldn't concede. Nubia was like, okay, that's the rules. The rules are the rules. And Hippolyta was placed in a predicament. It was like, do I tell Diana the truth, or do I allow this to happen and Diana dies?
When did that issue come out?
1970s. It's a 1970s book. I want to say about like 73.
Okay. That was back as the comic companies were starting to get socially conscious. You were seeing Green Lantern, Green Arrow travel around at that point, and
this was shortly after, not too far after she got her powers and stuff. Diana got her powers and stuff back. This is like right after the Aing Ching era, where she was depowered. She had the dress and flower shop and all the other stuff.
Yeah, she was.
When
we call that
change again.
We say she was Diana rigged at that point. Yeah, pretty much. Wouldn't you agree, Glenn?
Yep, all the way, 100%.
Wow.
I could just see Glenn's real reaction. It's like, that's a bunch of bollocks of what they did to her.
No, he's there covering his face because he doesn't want you to see him laughing at the audacity of it.
I'm not laughing at you, Joe. I'm laughing at it.
At the story,
I think Wonder Woman is one of the best creations ever, but you just can't leave things alone, can they? It's got to. I mean,
Yeah,
she's
that
not-
was,
it's
that
obvious
was
she's
back.
not gonna
That was
die.
back in the 70s, bro. That wasn't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
today.
Well, when you
know.
when you get
Yeah,
into the
that's
real,
true.
then there is a book out called The Secret Origin of Wonder Woman. It's really fascinating,
Is it?
very fascinating, and it's not exact. It's not what anybody expects. So,
Well,
it's very,
That's a brilliant idea. Take the most powerful female superhero DC had at the time. Hey, take her powers away. Make her a normal person.
well, that was Dennis O'Neill trying to be relevant, socially relevant, and
Well,
he's
I'm-
apologized profusely for doing
Yeah.
it too.
He got
I'm-
angry letters from Gloria Steinem.
Sorry, I didn't. I just trying to do something different here. Yeah.
Well, I currently identify as a white straight male, and I just think of Linda Carter when
Currently.
I see Wonder Woman.
Mm.
Currently, yeah. People want to change it all the time, don't they? So,
Linda Carter.
but that's what I am now.
Yep. She
I'm
still
kinda-
looks dynamite. She's still
No
looks
argument
great.
from the panel. I don't think none.
She's beautiful.
No
Well,
argument.
I'm kind of
still
on the
think about
fence.
her role in Sky High.
Linda Carter, I've showed you before, is the third best looking woman who ever lived.
The first,
Yeah.
of course, being your wife.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
There you go.
Yeah, get in the queue, guys.
yeah.
I'm kind of on the fence as far as Linda Carter being hot because she looks a lot like my mom, and that's just weird.
Wow.
That's just a little
Okay, there
strange
you go.
for me.
Well,
I'm like,
No, it's not weird. My mum was gorgeous. She was beautiful, my mum.
Yeah, but
Oh,
yeah.
There's
No,
Glenn's
that's
top
not what it's
three right
about.
Can I tell you about my favorite comics or no? Just
No, we're talking amongst
no.
ourselves then.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, but you had the chance. You blew that opportunity.
Yeah.
Go on.
can I-
No,
I
it's
forget
all
it.
right.
I forgot what they were now. It's all right.
Okay.
They were that good.
You haven't forgotten them at all because you have them here on the.
Oh, look, by coincidence.
Yeah.
if I
I
hey, how
love
about that?
those.
So, one of the most
Wow. Got these
unsung
sitting here.
heroes, Mike Mignola. Gotham by Gaslight has got to be,
Yeah,
bar none. It is. I think this is pre-Hellboy, and this is kind of what set the tone for Hellboy. I think.
Gotham by
Fantastic.
Gaslight is fabulous.
It
It's
is
one of my favorites. Yeah,
It is, and I
Yeah.
think that you, as a Batman artist, man,
Uh,
it's your life's blood on a lot of stuff. I would think this is just a dynamite book. The
Literally,
other one is
before you
Go ahead.
jump into the other one, literally a book that spawned an entire line over at
Mm.
DC with the
Mhm.
Elseworlds series.
yes,
Yeah.
This is the
yes.
first recognized Elseworlds book, and written by Brian Augustyn, and it's just
Incredible.
a incredible. Yeah, it's an incredible classic. Brian didn't write a lot for mainstream comics, but
Mhm.
what he did, it was just monumental. And this is probably the best work he ever did. I would have loved to have seen a sequel to this called Metropolis by Gaslight.
Yes,
It would have been
That would have
incredibly
been awesome.
interesting to see. Yeah.
I
And
did
her-
a sequel, but it wasn't as good.
No,
And it's-
yeah, they did a sequel to Gotham by Gaslight, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But this is still the one it's my go-to. I mean, that is just, it's an amazing book, and this is the reader copy. I mean, I still go through this and read this.
Now, do you have a collector's copy besides that? Since you
no.
mentioned that's a reader's copy.
No, I don't.
Okay.
And I'm gonna eventually get one. It's just one of those things. I've had so many comics come through the last year, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So if anybody's got one out there, let me know.
Okay.
Amazing Screw-On Head. This is the best one-off Mike Mignola story I think he's ever done. Secret agent works for Abraham Lincoln. I mean, and the basically the antagonist, Emperor Zombie, is the main character that he's trying to control and devastate. And it's an amazing book. The artwork is just phenomenal. Classic Mike in every page. And you don't know how this character works. You don't know how he moves or how it's set. He's basically an android from the past, and it's an amazing, just an amazing book. Classic Mignola. And
I'd like to see that without the color.
yeah, and I think that
And
what Randy was saying earlier, it might have been different. Maybe not, because Mike's pretty good about color. It might have been different on Photoshop versus what they printed. It could have been brighter. It could have been. I mean, there could have been a few things.
Oh
'Cause
no,
you see how many,
I think that was muted like that on purpose. They knew full
Yeah.
well what
Yeah.
it was going to look like once
Yeah.
it was out. But that's part of the genius of the people who colored Mignola's work,
Yes.
because they don't need all the fancy graduated tones. You see them every once in a while, but a lot of times it's very solid color because the artwork is very solid.
Right.
You know, and there's just a tremendously smart use of a negative space there. That's just, again, Mignola is really a master at
He is.
at
There's
sequential
no
art at this point. Just phenomenal stuff.
And without without Kirby, no Mignola.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh,
I mean,
there's a lot
no-
of, you'd see that in
you
a
can
lot of
see
the
it
dynamics.
you can see it, even the Kirby Crackle or whatever. I don't want to go
Without a
through
doubt.
everything, but it's
Yeah.
it's an amazing book. So
Yeah.
fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. So thank you for letting me share that.
It's
But
great
that
material.
is, if you can pick one of those up, if you can find it, do it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I need to find out, Ted.
Hmm.
How do I get a second camera going?
Well, we can discuss that afterward. It might be, I don't know. I've been trying to get Glenn to do it for months and it's not working. So we'll see if you guys can. Maybe we could do we'll do a meeting together. I use my iPhone though, a secondary iPhone.
You'll have
pretty
to,
simple. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
You'll
But
have
it's
to-
not. But
you'll
it's
have to
not
tell that
from,
to all of us, because I want to set
yeah.
one up as well.
No problem. You know what? I'll do a Ted and R. We'll do a Ted and R on
A TED
my
talk.
channel. We'll teach you all how to do it.
I might struggle with it because I don't have a mobile phone, a cell phone.
No, I've got a rostrum camera set up beside
Okay,
me,
yeah,
but it's just
I mean,
I have to. I can only
Switch back
obviously
and
come in on
very
one.
simple. It's a great way to do it, and you guys, I think it's essential so that we can all enjoy the
Yeah.
books, and
Well,
it takes a little bit of time to set up, but after
Yeah.
that you're ready to roll.
Thank
Yeah,
Not
we
to
can do
stray
that.
too far off topic, but everybody who's in comics who wants to talk comics really needs to learn how to get the equipment together to podcast.
Yes.
If they even if they don't do their own podcast, all you need is a camera, all you need is a microphone and a good computer to handle the software to get you up onto StreamYard,
Mhm.
and then you can do what we're doing. And there's so many great people out there, and to list them would take an entire program
Sure.
of people who should be
There you
podcasting
go.
out there because they have the experience and they have the wherewithal.
Mhm.
And they've been in the business for so long. They need to spread this information around. Look at those great Titan reprint books right there.
God, that's
Yeah.
See, that's great, Russ. That's perfect.
Gary
man.
Frank.
Yeah, I was just
Batman
wondering
Year
about I was just wondering about having like two cameras on at once, but
Yeah.
I mean I can do this. This is
Yeah,
Well, it's very simple, and
It works.
we'll talk about it. I'll teach
Yeah.
you guys. I'll do a like I said, a Ted and R. We'll just
so
do it all.
I'll just quickly since that's come up, I'll quickly whip through. Okay. This rather than the Infinity War, the two books that led up to it, I thought were wonderful,
Awesome.
very rich, beautiful. These are the originals, so they are first print, but they're also reader copies. I read everything I have in my collection.
and
that-
by
that-
far, Starlin at the height of his ability.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely at the
Just
height
amazing.
of his powers.
Yeah.
So
In the book.
something completely different from that, which I consider Elseworlds.
Oh,
People-
that's the best.
That's
Like,
one of
We all
yes,
should
one of my
consider
favorite.
that Elseworlds, and
Or
unfortunately,
original
they don't.
colors.
So yeah.
So,
I just sold my copy, and it's just beautiful. It's just such a gorgeous book.
gorgeous. Brian Bolland is fantastic.
And again,
a
artwork
wonderful
so
story.
artwork
Wonderful.
so good. They don't need to add these extra tones and
No,
extra
right.
mud to
No,
it.
they-
just
they
put a
don't.
flat color on it. Let people
What
enjoy it. Yeah.
What I wanted to do is I wanted a range of stories across my life, basically.
Okay.
So that's why I chucked in the original ABC Warriors and Judge Death.
Oh, wow.
These are all in black and white. They're lovely.
that volume is all Bolin, and it's
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
it's
it's
Bolin at his
crazy.
best.
That's amazing.
Just
beautiful,
prime
beautiful
material.
stuff.
I've never seen that
Um,
one. I've never seen
no?
that book.
Well,
Mm.
these were reprint by Titan back in the 90s.
Titan did an
And,
entire run
yeah.
of just phenomenally well printed reprints off of
Beautiful.
2000 and comic strip reprints.
Some
They
Ron-
did Garth during that period, and Jeff Hawk,
Mhm.
Beautiful
Modesty
Ron
Blaze,
Smith in
just
the back
great
there
stuff. Yeah.
Look at that.
as well. Just gorgeous stuff. So that's a lovely book. And then you got the original run
And
of the
you can
ABC Warriors.
you can if you turn the cover back before we talk about ABC, if you
Yeah.
turn the cover back, that the lower square there is a list of what Titan
Yeah.
had reprinted at that
Oh,
point.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, that's how much of the stuff that
they had
reprinted is
loads.
great
I've got
material.
quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And there's
And-
some grey tone, but there's some
and-
lovely
Yeah.
McMahon and Kevin O'Neill stuff in here.
And again, if you're going through your magazine boxes, which is pretty much where you're going to find these at your retailer or at a show, and you see a Titan reprint book, even if you don't recognize the title,
Lovely.
pick it up because it's great stuff.
Yeah.
Just
So-
phenomenal. Look at the line work here. You can't the camera can't do justice to the work
No.
that's done on this book.
Wonderful
Just
bit of
incredible.
stuff.
Yeah.
Pineapple Joe there. So I kind of went at that in the wrong order. I would say like first off would have to be every
great
time I
Essentials,
just
yeah, absolutely.
every time I look at this artwork, and this is look at that. And this is all the stuff that I was talking about when I talked about that Fantastic Four run. That was the stuff that was being reprinted in the pages of Captain Britain.
And this is
So I've
back
got
during a
that.
time when Marvel had hard pride in the work that they were doing. So they got the best to work on their best title. So that's John Buscema, Joe Sinnott, and probably Roy Thomas doing the writing on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is just beautiful stuff as well. I love the
Just
original
great.
run of Captain Britain.
Yep.
So I had Captain Britain, I had the Fantastic Four, and Nick Fury, Shield running in there, and then it basically goes to those 2000 AD stories up through as I got older, up through the Stalin stuff, and obviously into Killing Joke, and this actually I thoroughly enjoyed. This is very recent by comparison to all the other stuff. I suppose it counts as Elseworlds, but of course they've got all these multiple Earths in DC now,
Right.
and this is just beautifully drawn. It's you go, get the names there.
And I would say it's also
Gary Frank and Jeff Johns.
Yep. Incredibly written. It's just
Yeah.
best of the best on the best.
What a
On this.
look at this, and the colors as well. This is just gorgeous stuff, beautifully drawn. Okay, and a really interesting take on an alternative take on the characters and their their drives, what
Wow.
makes them who they are. Just beautiful stuff. I mean that. I'll get back to find that. No, I can't find it.
All of the Earth One books are re-envisions of the icons.
Wow,
There's
that's
been
terrific.
Earth One Wonder Woman,
terrific.
Earth
That's-
One Superman.
Yeah, and I mean this has essence. This has the essence of that
Yeah.
scene in the hall with Daredevil as well at the
Yes,
same
yes.
similar time.
Wow.
Just
Mhm.
brilliant stuff. Beautiful. So I mean, there are so many that I love. I mean, all you guys were picking out stories. I'm going, oh, I love them as well. I love them as well. And there's so many that you love, and you can't pick them all.
Yeah.
Sure.
But there you go. There's just a few of mine. So
And for us here in
Beautiful.
the States, we probably don't have a lot of exposure to the 2000 AD material. Those ABC Warriors are an incredible read. It's a group of mercenary robots.
and it's
that-
so
that
anti-war.
Go off on different assignments. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
interesting. It's anti-war, really.
in the same
Oh,
way
very
that
much so.
in the same way that Judge Dredd was anti-fascism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
The
is,
ABC Warriors
like,
is anti-war.
yeah.
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah.
Just all of those, the 2000 AD properties during that time were incredibly clever. Just great stuff. Unbelievable imagination with the best artists and the best writers just coming together and making that synergy that's so rare in comics that leaves that impression with us when we're young. Everybody here is influenced by these great stories from their from their youth when they were in school or whatever. They pick up on a story, and that starts the spark that really literally ignites careers for folks.
Yeah, I mean, I can look straight back at those the Captain Britain and the reprints of Buscema and Sinnott in those pages. So the Fantastic Four, the Steranko Nick Fury, also the reworks of the reruns of again Buscema Avengers, and I look back at all that stuff and think that's it. I posted the other day about Stalker, DC
Yep.
Stalker, and it was like I saw a panel with
That's a
Steranko
very
on.
rarely talked about Barbarian series that ran with DC, that Wally Wood and I think Ditko did a number of those towards the end. Yeah,
exactly.
I think Wally Wood might have inked over Ditko on a couple of those. Just
and I was
great stuff.
I was watching Steranko talk about Wally Wood and his inspirations, and Steranko talking about unconscious things that influenced you, unconscious influences. And so I look back at my at the stuff I saw from Buscema, the great work from lots of different people within Captain Britain, also the influences that came post that with all the 2000 AD stuff and what have you. Then I started picking up the Spider-Man stuff, saw a lot of Romita stuff, but it's actually that Stalker stuff. I showed someone a cover once and they went, "Oh, I can see your work in there," and I couldn't see it. And I'm being influenced by Ditko and Wally Wood and didn't even know it.
Wow.
And it's like,
I see a lot of Gil Kane in your work too.
I can see a bit of Gil Kane as well, you know, and you look at your own work and you don't, obviously you're sort of, you've got this imposter syndrome anyway. The last thing you want to do is say, "Oh, there's some of those people in my work," because it sounds really arrogant. But it isn't. It's just like a lineage. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants. I love that phrase. Yep. And those people have influenced my work. I'm forever grateful to them for doing it.
Well, when back in the 60s when I was a kid, I was lucky because I got Fantastic Four and Marvel, you know, Spider-Man and all those Kirby things. But I've shown this before. This is a rubbish cover, but I'll show you some of the interior art.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's
the one with the biros on the front.
They even changed the title. It's actually The Rise and Fall of the Trigon Empire. But look at this artwork by Don Lawrence. Look at that.
Oh yeah,
it's all hand painted, just
incredible.
Beautifully painted in acrylics and watercolor. It's just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
and it tells the story of another planet, and it just goes through all the history. But they all dress like Roman soldiers all the time, but they have flying machines and artillery and stuff. You know, it's just John Lawrence is one of the greatest comic artists who ever lived. I think, you know, certainly one of the best British ones.
I think when you see something as good as that, you can't possibly mistake the seriousness with which those people approached that story.
Oh yeah,
you know, there was so much commitment and seriousness about the production, about how it turned out, apart from the lettering, of course.
Right.
And but you can see how much they threw into that. Just look. All you have to do is just look at that first image, and it's like your mouth's open. Wow.
Well, I couldn't. You know, I said this before that this cover is awful, but the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, didn't mean to take you off.
Lean on that button.
hit the wrong button. Hang on.
Look at those lovely paintings by Don Lawrence of the characters.
Yeah.
And then somebody's thrown that together. I think it was you, Randy, that said it was like Star Wars time.
Yeah, that's why they did that. Yeah.
But look at that.
You know what that cover needs? It needs a spaceship. Yeah.
Yeah. So they ruined it. But it is a fabulous book. It's been reprinted, I think, in a better format than this. But I've not got that one.
I'm gonna have to dig that up too. More stuff to find.
Well, there's several artists there, wasn't there, Russ? There was Frank Bellamy, Mike Noble, Ron Embleton. There's 5 or 6 really, really, really top artists who produced all that stuff.
And then you get the next generation, like John Burns, is it, that comes along?
John Burns, John Burns. Yeah, and there's a lot, and then you get into the 2000 AD stuff. You got Ron Smith and Brian Bolland and Kevin O'Neill and all those.
I got to work.
That's a whole nest of unique artists doing their own. I got to work
with John Burns. There's John Burns, and then there's John Burns, his nephew. I think he's his nephew, and they have exactly the same name.
Right.
And he used to work on Marvel stuff, and one of his last jobs was he ended up doing the colours on the Doctor Who Adventures run that I did. So he did the colours right the way through. So I was fortunate enough to work with him.
That's cool, man.
That's not even the same John Byrne that all of us know from Alpha Flight and X-Men and all.
No, ours is John Burns with an S on it.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking John Byrne, but
it's got a UR in it. So it's like how you actually spell Byrne.
Yeah, B-U-R-N.
Russ is quite the name dropper now. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you think that it was generational with the way that the creations happened? I mean, in that era, I mean, we're seeing a lot of things like right now with the new Batman that just came out, the Joker. What was it? It's a brand new one that just came
The
out. Mark
Batman that
Sylvester.
laughs.
Yeah. No, it just came out like
Is
2
it the
days
Deadly
ago.
Duo?
This week, Batman and the Joker. It's like
Thank
Deadly
you.
Duo or
Yeah.
something.
So
Oh,
you
no,
see
that one,
these
okay.
type of things coming out. What do you think it's a generational thing, like the Silence generation? The Silent generation had better writers. I mean, they had Kirby, they had everything else, and then you get the baby boomers, which a lot of you are of that era, and then you get the Gen Xers. But do you think that it was because of the storytelling, because they had to tell stories that certain way, and that's why we
I think
had this boom of 50s through the 70s?
I think it's a
or
wave,
80s?
isn't it? It's a wave of life. It's the way
Yeah.
the next generation will always bring its creative forces and its negative forces. It's just a wave, isn't it? You know, it's just life.
Generational. It's a sense of context too of the person growing up and finding the entertainment
What
that
resonates?
that
And
resonates
being
with them.
being
Exactly.
influenced by their environment and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I kind of talked about that on my show yesterday. Is what was available at that time, because I mentioned that the change in storytelling is obvious now between when I grew up and what they're doing now. It's obvious. And there's certain things that is being lost because of it, because nobody is being really taught to go backwards, to look at what's been done before. Everybody worry about the here and now and what fresh ideas that is being had. And
none of the editors up there want them to go backwards because they consider that to be nostalgic, even though there's a reason why it's labeled as classic.
Right.
Yeah, I think
it's not a bad word.
It's not gonna last forever. The whole thing comes down to quality. It comes down to
sorry to interrupt your point
and entertainment.
Not a problem.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I could, we all did this. We can all see that it's Kirby, Dick Cole, Ramita, Gene Cole, and we can all tell the style. Yeah. But when I go into Forbidden Planet now and look, and I just glance at the new stuff, and it's just all the same. So they're not copying it, but they're copying the style. If you must,
you know what?
The same thing.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. I have. That's the thing that I wrestle with most.
Yeah,
is you look at other people, you look at the styles that you love.
Yeah,
and even new stuff that comes along, like that Gary Frank stuff.
Yeah,
not Gary Frank. The Earth One. Who was that?
Yeah, that was Gary Frank.
That's Frank. I look at that. I go, oh my God, that's beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I ought to draw a bit like that. I'm not saying I can. I'm just saying, it influences.
Strive. Yeah.
And you what you've got to do is you've got to just take what it means to you. You've got to take the essence of it. But why is it good? Why is it making you feel that way?
But honestly,
that's what you need to put into your style. Yeah. You need to be you. And that's how you get noticed. That's how you pick out a style off the shelf and think, oh, I know who that is. Yeah. Because
the thing for me,
it's
the
individual.
thing for me right now, though, is that if you take a drawing from that book that Gary Frank did, you stack it up against Blackest Night by Ethan Van Sciver, you stack it up against a Jim Lee Batman, and you show it to people, and you ask them which one is which. They're not going to be able to tell them apart.
Yeah, they're to a degree, and they're all fine artists,
and they're all great.
They're all great artists, and that's exactly it. Whereas if you stuck a Manola, if you
look Manola Perez or what, you could tell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotham by Gaslight up against those other Batmans, and they'll go,
like,
"Oh, I know that is."
Well, that happened.
There was a time you'd walk into the spiral rack here and I wouldn't pick up a book if it was drawn by Don Heck, and he seemed to be the fill-in artist.
Exactly.
His style wasn't appealing to me.
Yeah.
Frank Robbins, I had a really hard time buying for a long time until you sit down and actually look at what they're able to what they did and what they did, and know that they did it on short notice.
But then it comes down
to held to a style. It's just amazing.
Then it comes down to personal preference as well. Like when I was young, I didn't like Corby,
very much.
Didn't like Kirby.
I didn't either.
I had an epiphany and realized just what a damn genius the guy was. And and so I think there's a certain amount of it you can put down to taste and subjective taste.
Yeah.
And so you look at, like we were just saying, you put those three Batman artists up against each other and like, oh, they all look very similar. Yes, but it depends where you're coming from. Okay. And
you and I would be able to tell the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah. Somebody walking in off the street would just,
a lot of fans,
it's all just
a lot of fans would as well. Do you know what I mean? But if you're just talking about someone new to comics, then does it matter? as
True.
long as it's quality, as long as
Yep.
it's good, and as long as it's entertaining.
Yeah.
So there's a balance to be had.
When 2000 AD came out, one of the great things about it, apart from the writing and everything else, but one of the great things was that the stories tended to be single issue or maybe 2 or 3 issues, and you'd have Bolland, and you think, wow, this is so realistic, so beautiful, this artwork. And then the next issue you get Ian Gibson, who's real cartoony style, and then next you get Cam Kennedy, who has what I would describe as a scratchy style, and you get and then Kevin O'Neill,
Mike Mahone,
but it was always Judge Dredd.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean? It was even though the style changed. I guess that's maybe the writing, but it was always Judge Dredd. But it was just such a joy to get the different artists on it. Whereas in the Marvel comics, everything changed, didn't it? And it started to go backwards. I thought in the 70s with the styles, and we know when the Kirby's and the Romita stopped drawing and all that. I don't think that the new wave at that point were anywhere near as good as those guys. They may have been since, but I've not been reading them, so I don't know. But I just think we had such a treat in those days of these fantastic artists, different artists.
I really can't completely co-sign on that. I believe that's part of the reason. The other part of the reason is the story itself.
Yeah.
Because again, it's a perfect marriage between art and writing. That's
Mhm.
the reason why Jim Lee stuff sticks out.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why Kirby stuck out in all the examples that we're making.
Mhm.
It wasn't just the artwork, it was how that artwork told the story that some other writer came up with. And nowadays you're seeing that you got all these fantastic artists out there putting together some decent work, but the story doesn't
stink.
It doesn't magnify why that artwork is so important.
Yeah.
So true.
That's it. Joe's absolutely underpinning what you were talking about there, Glenn, about every time you went to see Judge Dredd, you were going for Judge Dredd. You weren't going for the artist. The art was great. Okay. But you were going for Judge Dredd. The stories were cracking. The art.
It was always Judge Dredd. Yeah.
It was, and it worked. And it worked because those stories were fabulous because it was Judge Dredd.
I'll tell you what
Joe was saying.
What would have been a great thing to see is if you got a single Dredd series, the 3 or 4 issue stories, and you got those artists I mentioned to draw the same script. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Just for something to see.
Experiment.
It's never going to happen. But how good it would have been to see, Brian Bolland's story that he drew, drawn by Cam Kennedy. It would have been totally different. But
Kevin O'Neill doing Judge Death.
Oh yeah, Kevin O'Neill.
That would have looked really good.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever felt
the Nemesis work? Just amazing.
You ever felt left or let down a bit if you've got the artist that you really, really love do the cover, and then the interiors aren't that same artist? Do you ever feel that way? I feel that way a lot with Mignola writing all the stories in that. He does the cover art, and then the interiors, they're just not quite. You know what I mean? You've got artists that are similar, but not quite there.
That happened with Marvel when Kirby used to draw all the covers, didn't it? You'd open it and you get Don Heck drawing something, or George Tusker, and it wasn't anywhere near as good.
It would change it right away.
Usually over Kirby layouts, as we said before.
Right.
So, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's a bit of a bugbear of mine, to be honest. Down to when I was doing stuff for other people like indie comics, I'd really want to do the cover as well.
Oh,
I wouldn't want them to get other people to do the cover. I don't mind to do variations. It's fair enough. But I'd want to do a cover.
And to go back to 2000 AD and the opposite side of the coin there, I can't see anyone drawing Strontium Dog.
Carlos Esquerra,
except for Esquerra, because of that look, the feel that he had and the grittiness to his style. It just made that character. I had a hard time with other artists drawing Rogue Trooper that weren't Dave Gibbons because it was so the style was so associated with the character.
At the start. My favorite Rogue Trooper artist would be Cam Kennedy. But that's just obviously an opinion.
It gave it a completely different feel.
It's an incorrect
Cam Kennedy
it's an opinion.
Cam Kennedy used to draw Commando comics in the early 70s.
Okay,
he used to draw that's why in Rogue Trooper his weapons were so good, because he really is good at drawing weapons and jeeps and tanks and stuff like that.
Had a lot of practice.
Hey Joe, who is the best Wonder Woman artist?
I really don't have one, but if I have to,
Come
I
on,
really
dude.
have to go
Come
back.
Come
on.
on, man. Yeah, come on.
Again, this is the difference. This is the difference in how I view it and how other people who are in this industry views it. There's a lot of people who are art fans, and I get that. I understand that. It's like, oh, I have to have this person, that person, that person. If I could get them, I could put it together a great book. I follow more the writers
Mhm.
because without them
There's no
working
story.
along with some of these great artists, you wouldn't have the hits that you have.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've learned since, producing my own books is that I constantly work on my art. I constantly is a growing aspect to it. I have to constantly grow and experiment and do all this other stuff. So I can't really say it's like, oh yeah, I want to, emulate like a Jim Lee or John Byrne the way that I would like to, because I understand what it took for them to make the stuff the way that they did.
Mhm.
It really depends on the story that they were working on. And if I emulate what they did, and I'm not working on those type of stories, and I didn't have their type of talent, and I'm learning, I'm not really doing a service to them, nor the story that I'm trying to create. So one way or the other, you're going to have to learn. It's like, does this type of art style really work for this type of story form, or do I take more from Kirby on this particular aspect of this panel as opposed to what Byrne did over here, or what Jim Lee did over there? That's like, you have to go through all the different iteration and generations. Now the stuff from Wonder Woman in the 1940s dealing with the Greek gods and the Roman stuff, I still got to learn that, because whoever did that knew armor and how the armor and everything looked from that time frame.
That was
When
Peters.
you see
Yeah.
those chariots and see everything from that era done back then in the 1940s, it was more of a cartoony art style, but it was close enough where you knew what era it came from. I have not really seen that being truly emulated correctly in the modern day. It's always some type of offshoot where somebody got like some type of photo reference, but the functionality was not always there like it was back then.
Not just that, but Peters came from a really hardcore Art Deco background and his illustration work. It's the only comics really that I believe he ever did was Wonder Woman. He was personally chosen by Moulton to come in on that title because of his look, because of the style that he did. And yeah, the armament and the chariot, everything in that during that period looked incredibly, natural. And that's why he was chosen to do that work. Peters and Moulton were only on the book for a few years. Their time on the book is so short, but Moulton created the character. Wonder Woman's one of those really interesting characters, almost exactly the opposite from Dredd, where Dredd stayed extremely, the character stayed incredibly well defined all the way through its run. I mean, even to this day, where Wonder Woman changed all the time. Every time a new art team come on it, every time a new writer came on it, the character itself shifted. And so you went from the Moulton period to the people trying to do Moulton to Kanigher and Andrew doing an incredibly fantasy-oriented work, to the other artists that came in during the 60s. And there was after Andrew, who turned it into more of a superhero book, to Denny O'Neil, who turned it into tried to do a secret agent book for an incredibly short period of time and got away from that, to people like Colin and Thomas coming on the book, to Diodato and Lobes coming on the book, to Perez coming on the book. Every time a new art team or a creative team comes on that book, the character changes. And that's why you can't really pin down Wonder Woman. It's a very difficult character to do without putting your own personal stamp on it, because the character is so liquid. Unlike Superman is almost like that, only exactly to me, he's a hard character to do because he's so powerful. And you literally have to find a way to humanize Superman in order to write a good Superman story, I think, because he's so godlike. He's not a man anymore.
Again, go back to 1940 Superman, and that's how you get it over into this generation, because he's way too powerful. You don't need a god; you need a character.
I'm a big proponent of that, of going back to, if you're going to do Superman, make him a man and make him a super an enhanced man instead of a lower kick down emotional god, because that's where all of the big sales in Superman came from, was back when he was fighting for every man and fighting the everyday causes. When he was first out, the George Reeves era, that on television, that kind of thing, where you take him and he's a human being with enhanced powers that just came from another planet, instead of a god that came down and decided that he had the capabilities of literally ruling the world if he wanted to.
Faster than a speeding bullet. Jump.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Not
Only
fly.
More powerful than a locomotive.
Penetrate his skin. Yeah. Yep. Or that classic cover where he gets struck by lightning and he says it tickles.
Mm-hmm.
That tickles.
And that makes me always think about back to the Max Fleischer cartoons, because that was the purest form of that 1940 Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Those are,
and
again, they're still live
they're
up.
still great. Yeah.
Still amazing to watch, but you see where they take that foundation and they built on it as an enhanced being. They concentrate on Kent and Lois also a lot. So instead of Kent just being a add-on, it's almost like a story with three main characters instead of two.
Another one of my favorites is that.
Oh,
This is my reader copy. I've got the actual book in the archive.
The best.
This is just amazing.
Amazing.
Everybody should read this. I don't know about the follow-up stuff. I've never seen that, but I never read that book.
Good.
But
not comparable.
That doesn't surprise me.
Even the people who don't care for Alan Moore need to sit down and read that.
Yeah,
it's
great.
Exactly.
That and V for Vendetta, I think, are high.
That's one of my favorites.
I don't care much.
I mean the comic, not the movie.
No,
the comic.
I can't get past David Lloyd's artwork in V. I just don't like it. It's all photographs, isn't it, and stuff. I just don't like it. I just can't get past it.
But that comes back to what I was saying about the story. It's like, you know what, there's just certain artists that just can't do certain stories, and depending on which side of the fence that you're on as far as being a fan of comics, if you're an art fan, it's going to take you out immediately. I get into several arguments on a daily with other creators. It's like they'll be like, art. It's like, nope. Mary, what is it doing? What is this art doing to the story?
You can put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. I mean, you got to have the right story. So
John Byrne drew Wonder Woman for quite a few years. Nobody talks about that era.
No, they talk about that era for one reason. They talk about that era for one reason, and that one reason is the biker chick.
Oh, the biker chick. Made her a biker. Okay.
Because during that time, I believe it was Artemis had the mantle during that time, and when she took over the mantle, he put her in that leather-clad biker outfit, and there was so much of an outrage over that.
Well, I think you're going to see a lot more of it. I was just up on Facebook yesterday, and Bill Loebs is like going, DC just contacted me about Artemis and some rights issue. Who am I supposed to talk to about that? So I would imagine you're going to see a little bit of Artemis in the next Wonder Woman movie. So
are they making another Wonder Woman movie?
They're always going to make another Wonder Woman movie.
Oh, that's always been a plan. Ever since the failure of '84, they were saying that there's going to be a third movie. They already greenlit the third movie.
If Denise Crosby didn't stop the franchise, nothing will.
The first movie was great.
You ever see the first made-for-TV movie? Just
I think they should have made it with Linda Carter in, but that's just me.
Well, she was in '84.
She's the president.
It was just so short-lived.
Yeah, but she wasn't Wonder Woman, was she?
No, she was the legendary hero that she got the armor from, and it's just like, you know what? For it to be legendary armor to get shredded apart within 2 minutes in the movie, that's just ridiculous.
Good point.
I'll tell you a great joke off there about
ridiculous.
Remember, folks, we're TV MADLSV. So if you have to tell a joke about Wonder Woman,
say it off air.
All right, off the air.
That's where
back to the back to the chat. My Kickstarter went live last night. That's really nice. We'll look for
Whoever
a
you are.
Kickstarter by Facebook user and take a good look at that campaign, my friend. You need to go over to YouTube, Indie Comics Network, subscribe, and start a YouTube page if you have to, and come on here so that we know who you are, so that we can promote you properly. So
Or at
please,
least put your name in the comments so we know who you are.
there it is. Ominous Mischief by the Demented Dead. Something to look for. Thanks, Facebook user. Sarah says Deadman was originally doing that to find out who murdered him. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly.
Great character.
Great first year arc for a TV series, but hey, what do I know?
Yep.
Anyway, Marv says I can't say that's my favorite story, but my favorite runs are Rom Space Knight and Conan from back in the day, of course.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
See, not a lot of people hold Rom in that high of esteem. Yeah.
Little Frank Miller drawing, but I don't know.
But like Joe says, you get that perfect synergy working with the right artist and the right writer. You get whole runs like that, almost like a skipping stone. Not every character has their good runs for the most part. Every character has their great runs.
What do you do when
those?
What do they do when they run out? I mean, even Kirby. I mean, we were talking about that with Glenn Omack was not something I would tell anybody about. No. I'm just saying, but
really,
how do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think such a crazy level of imagination. When's the last time you sat and read them?
But when you're looking back on it,
I didn't think much of Soylent Green either until I sat down and watched it a few years ago or a few months ago and went, "Holy crap, this is so prolific!" It's not even funny.
Soylent Green are people. Who would have thought?
Yeah, who'd have thought?
If you need a post-apocalyptic movie, get Charlton Heston.
The last time I watched the movie, I thought it was the most boring piece of crap I'd ever had to sit through. And now when older, now I'm sitting there watching it. Of course, I couldn't move at the time that I was watching it because I was in the hospital paralyzed.
Did it.
But I'm sitting there going, this is so today. It's not even funny. How did they know everything was going to come out like this? Especially putting it in 2022. Just crazy. Just absolutely crazy. Sarah says yesterday I picked up a Dead Man, a new 52 DC trade paperback.
He was really heavy.
It was really heavy.
That dead weight. Yeah.
Let's be glad it wasn't an omnibus. Anyway, interesting to bring up right after I got that trade paperback though. LOL.
If you want to read some really good Dead Man, Alex, I think is good is the Mike Barron, Kelly Jones run. They did two different miniseries, and they're both
another
good
run of books nobody talks about that are phenomenal. Just unbelievable. Sarah says not sure my opinion of Dead Man with DC yet. Okay, again, another character that's gone through a lot of reiterations. Those Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams stories always stick out in my mind, but those were the ones that were prominent when I was growing up and absorbing
Green Lantern, Green Arrows from back then.
That still hold up.
Indie Comics, Barry White.
Joe is Indy's Barry White. What a sexy voice. Wow. There you go, Harvey. They hate you, Russ.
I get that a lot.
That's Segrelli's. I'm sure I just massacred that name. Had some good painted books too. Fazerko, thank you for being here today. Says how many times artists from the 90s were mentioned? None, because they haven't influenced today's artists like the older ones did. Lee, Capullo, McFarlane, Lynch, maybe not Rob. So, though Marv, seriously, Rob apprenticed so many people out there, a lot more than what you realized during those Image days, because they were all kicking out a lot of books that they probably shouldn't have been and needed all the people that they could get their hands on. That you'd be amazed the people working in the business that apprenticed for Rob. They don't necessarily draw like Rob, but Rob gave them that foothold and that step up into the business. Charles Santino says writers, yes.
He's not biased though, is he, Charles?
Not at all.
No.
Marvy says in the new Superman series, they had to put characters as powerful as him and others to godlike powers to challenge it. Yeah. Well, what do you do when you have a god? So
have him protest. Is the last thing I saw him do.
Well, that's modern big dog books.
Is he going to glue
get
his head
Batman.
to the
I
sidewalk?
thought that was his son. His son was protesting, not him.
If
Yeah.
you want to beat
Well,
up
yeah,
a
but he has
god,
the same powers. He
Got
could
the same name
cure-
now. So.
Right.
you want to
he
beat
could
up a
cure
god,
global warming.
get Batman in
Yeah.
every time.
Get Batman in protesting the evil of corporations. That would be great.
That would go down well.
He kind of already did that,
He is a
technically. in one of the
corporation.
books. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
that would be so ironic. It's like protest big.
Protest this.
Well, he
Yeah.
did mention that it's in a recent issue, like it's not his job to protect, people's businesses from being broken into. It's like, what?
Well,
You're
no,
Batman.
no.
I'm Batman. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, because there's like a riot or something in Gotham, and he's like, well, I have other things to do. I can't, protect these, or it's not my job to protect these businesses. And he, kind of soars off. And I'm like, what? You're Batman. That's kind of your whole thing.
Yeah.
There's crime.
Yeah, crime.
One of the
It's like,
worst.
These are common criminals, and I'm like a triple A lister now. So no, I don't think
Yeah.
I only
It-
take down super criminals. I'm sorry, it's not my
Yeah.
job.
Did you just escape from Arkham? No. See ya.
When do you have a creator? When they write, like I said, if you don't like OMAC or whatever, what about like Batman Odyssey? When
Let's
the
not-
creator goes so far off the reservation, and then how do they come back? How do we still restore?
We're not
without
here to
just
talk
looking
about.
back?
We're not here to talk about the stories we hate. We're here to talk about the stories we
Good
love.
point.
You call it a
Or else
dream.
we'd be talking
You
about
make it a
Kingdom
dream.
Come right now. What a mess.
You make it a dream.
Yeah, you make it a dream
You make it a
sequence.
dream
and
sequence.
come
That's
back.
You have Bobby wake up in the shower.
That's it. That answers
You
it.
completely ignore an entire season.
Or just making an Elseworld story. That's
That's
the
true,
easiest.
too.
I
just
wonder
got
how
out of
many
the
people
shower.
catch that Dallas reference there. Bobby,
I had
you're
this.
right.
I had this amazing dream in the shower that I was Aquaman.
There you go.
You didn't know?
No, the man from Atlantis.
No,
Yeah.
I was man from Atlantis. I had these lovely orange, greeny trunks on. They
That's
were like
like now, I-
lovely toweling material, and I'd jump in and jump out. I had webbed feet. It was great.
My enemies
I
call
talked to
me
fish.
no more.
And Amber Heard was your
Yeah,
girlfriend.
no more.
No more. No more.
Abbotsford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never hear from them at all. They just call me no more.
Wow.
Ah, brum.
Wow.
Thanks very much. I've been here a week. Try the veal.
Try the veal.
Mm.
Yep.
That's
Wow.
why they didn't have Schwarzenegger in the latest in Wakanda Forever.
Why is that?
Because the first thing he'd want to say is, "It's not a tumor. I'm not a tumor."
Wow.
No, bad.
No.
Dad jokes brought to you by Sunday Funnies.
Wow.
Brought to you by Sunday
My
Funnies,
wife's
man.
rolling
I
her
always
eyes above
remember
us
the
as
beer
we
is
speak.
always 25 cents for the first 50 customers.
I'm not a tumor. Anyway,
Oh, dear.
killed that conversation, didn't I?
Yeah.
Anyway,
There you
hey,
go.
growing up, I read everything about comics, especially superheroes, because I couldn't have them in the house. So one of the books I ran across was the comics History of Comic Books in America by Les
Cool.
Daniels.
That's cool.
And had no idea who Banana Man was, and still practically have no idea who he is to this day. But inside, they had these great stories reprinted from all the different eras of comics. This
Ooh.
particular being a Wally Wood, Julius Caesar.
Looks like something from Mad, maybe.
That
Look
is
at
from Mad.
Look at that
That's
beautiful headline lettering, Randy. Hold up again.
Yes.
Look
That's
at that.
great.
Isn't that
Look
great?
At that.
Amazing.
They wrote these stories and lettered them and then sent them to the artist, but to be drawn. But one of the great stories in here that had a big impression on my youth was a Plastic Man story of Jack Cole's. Just classic stuff where he meets the Granite Lady,
Cool. Cool.
who's a lady that had the mystical power of making all men fall in love with them.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Look at that Jessica Rabbit pose right there. This is back in the 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the one
Just
thing I
phenomenal
loved
stuff.
about Jack Cole was like his cartoonish like
Mhm.
crowd characters. They were
Yeah.
they were just so what's the proper? They all had like a certain personality to them, but they were all like background characters.
And here, Plastic Man is so enamored by the woman, he has to pinch himself. So he's got a little extra shoulder pinch there working, and his neck is way out of proportion. He's never really in total proportions anyway. He ties this guy up by wrapping his arm around him on the post as he walks into the nightclub to see the woman. And the story revolves around a jealous boyfriend who's a mad scientist, of course, who just tries to turn her into a statue so that he can worship her at his leisure. And instead, it just turns her into a moving lady of granite. And so she goes around and pounds out all of the ridiculous men who worship her. It worked all right on a cat when he turned the cat into a statue. But when he injected her, she became mobile, and just all it took was one big hit on the head, and the scientist was dead. So then Plastic Man has to go out and fight her. So of course she's got superpowers. So she's choking him there.
Look at the folds on that skirt there. Look at that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Just an amazing work. Like I said, had a big influence on me when I was a kid about how great superheroes could be. He finally makes her swallow the antidote and turns her back
By force. Look at that panel.
by force. Yeah,
Drag it.
glug glug. Yeah,
Cartoony by force too.
just
But this is still during a time frame where he still did part-time work as a safecracker too, if I'm correct.
not Plastic Man. No, he was. That's the later revisionist stuff that they did. But he did get her to let him go eventually by drilling her in the back.
That's not a double.
A lot of innuendo there, bro.
The industrial drill.
God.
You could write that.
That's not a
Right?
metaphor at all,
Nobody
no.
said these comics were for kids back then.
Yeah.
All you got to do is go and read those old Wonder Woman, and you realize that.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
She was popular for a reason, and it wasn't because she was appealing to kids.
Maybe that's what they meant when they came up with Dazzler. Was it Stan Lee actually said driller, but they heard him wrong.
Could be. There's an old, a great old story about Doug Wilde when he was creating Johnny Quest for Hanna-Barbera, and they had the pilot done where Johnny and Race are fighting a group of lizard men, and the notes they got back for the second episode was that Johnny needed a companion, like an Indian companion, like Tano. So Wilde says, "Oh, you want me to give him a friend that's an Indian? I can do that." So he created Haji instead.
That's
so
awesome.
not a Native American, but an actual.
I just happen to have the same
person
book.
from
I think
India.
I've just got a smaller version.
Those
Not
are
as
great
big.
old Sheena, Queen of the
That's
Jungle.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Lovely,
This might not have been Eisner at that point, but it might have been. It was definitely one of his apprentices that was working on that stuff.
I love the way they did that, man. Just the panel. It's all she's stepping in and out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they were really. Some of these guys were really experimental during that period. Yeah. Oh, you got the
Very
same book?
cool, man.
Is that a paperback version of that?
Yeah,
book?
yeah, it is. It's
I'm gonna have to dig that up
reduced version.
because all of mine have dust covers on it. They're all library. Mine are old library copies that I end up finding at shows.
Oh,
Every
awesome.
time I've got
Awesome.
2 copies of this now, but every time I find one, I usually give it to a friend as a gift. So
That's
I've gone
awesome.
through a good half a dozen copies of this book.
But-
It's just great.
But all these things, I'll show you something now. All these things, they inform us as artists.
Yeah.
And the way that we do things.
Mhm.
And there's a constant. Here you go, I've got a shared page up there. We're just talking about popping out the pop outs and the cutouts and that kind of thing. Andy, you just want to share that page? So
Definitely can.
So I've got
I've
got the 2 of them popping out in the middle there to create a scene where the freeze ray goes past.
You're sure you can show this?
Yeah. It's like nobody's going to know.
Okay.
It's just us and a few thousand people.
All right.
It's because I'm not in Canada, because this is all like single issue stuff and fun stories. We can get away with showing a few bits and pieces prior to launch.
It's just amazing. Look,
But I
at
just
that.
happen to have this one up. That's the only reason I'm showing it. Is
Wow.
because we mentioned the pop out, and these things inform us as artists, inform us as storytellers. We're constantly back to that thing of standing on the shoulders of giants. That's what we're doing. We're constantly being formed by these things. So I personally feel there's no excuse, for some of the work that gets produced by bigger publishers. Okay, there's no excuse for the quality not to be there. Right? It should be there, because surely everything you do must improve, or at least attempt to improve on the things that have gone before you. And if nothing else, you should learn from them.
I think not doing that rests solely into the lap of the editor.
Maybe it does,
and the publisher that approved the editor's decision.
There's other things involved, like how much people get paid and all the rest of it, how much time they have to do the job, and all these things flow in. But and I think it comes down to, we've mentioned this before, we obviously don't want a massive conversation about it, but the seriousness with which larger companies see comic books. The amount of effort they put into those things.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like Joe was saying, he tries to better his art every page that he does, and I think that we all try to do that. And then, I mean, we're digesting all this information that we see throughout the years of all of our, whether we're reading books or comics or whatever, and it all goes into our art. We don't realize it, but it does. And I think that you can't help but become better.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Marv says, I used to watch Wonder Woman just to see Linda Carter running.
Yeah. Just to watch her spin.
You ever get a chance and you want to see a version of Wonder Woman very few people have seen, go up and take a look at the David Kelly pilot that was done with, I think it's Diana Palicki, who is the number 2 on, you know where I'm going. Who is the number 2, the first mate right now on Orville. They did an entire pilot of Wonder Woman. David R. Kelly wrote right off of his, I think it was Boston Legal that he had done. And it is horrible. And it's like, oh, thank goodness that didn't get to series. But, he's tracking a guy, a group of criminals down through a shipyard with all of these containers on it. And the way she contains one of them as she kicks one of the containers and squishes a guy in between two of them.
That's right.
What a great
terrible
for a hero to do.
It's like,
and she's running a corporation right now.
Thermoscara.
Yeah.
The NBC pilot. That's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's running a corporation that watches over her image, and she's upset at the size of the breasts of the doll. That they're just too big.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway.
Isn't that sort of a bit bigoted towards women who do have bigger breasts?
Pretty much. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not fair, is it?
But you
far
can't
be it for me to
objectify
argue.
those
Yeah.
women, you know. That's why there's no longer a Power Girls series at DC. So, another story for another time.
This is the reason.
I could see Wally Wood too sitting at his desk. You know what she needs? She needs a window. Right there.
The window. But you see, the thing is you could just take the window away and write good Power Girl stories, surely.
Yeah.
You could, but that's just too hard.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Well, I think
controversial.
There should be. I think there should be a Power Girl. I think there should be a Zatanna series out there in the worst way. And then there should be all different shapes of women in those comics, just to drive that point home. But I still think Supergirl and Mary Marvel should have skirts, but that's just me. So,
well, maybe with panning.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah,
but
because with just a skirt, and they're flying above you, it's kind of
look up in the sky. Oh,
there's a bird. There's a plane.
Supergirl.
It's a tuna. Anyway,
it's a bird. It's a plane. Quick, get your camera out.
Is that an Arby's roast beef sandwich?
Wow. I'm going to show you the line.
PBMA, folks. Thanks a lot for listening.
Yeah,
I don't see what
we're going to watch our numbers drop now.
I don't see what the problem is with Power Girl. If they want to if they're worried about the size of a chest, why don't they just do what they do with everything and make it a man?
Well, you know why she's so
well
endowed.
Put the window here.
I know
why she's so well endowed is that the artist that was working on him at the time kept increasing her breast size until he got word from the editor. That's why she's as large as she is, or was at least. And they said, well, aren't those a little big?
She went from like
No.
Supergirl to shirtless girl, like within two copies. I mean, it's just not bad.
Well, they're still doing Power Girl, but you have to go to X videos and X
Different
Hamster
story
to
for a
see 'em.
different time.
Yeah, right.
Yep. You're still
Well,
doing Supergirl
that
too,
was-
only it's not the same. Yeah.
Right.
Now I remember the outrage with Power Girl when they did that whole quote unquote Earth 2 version of her where she was of a different nationality.
Yeah.
And that,
Well,
that
that's-
went
that's
over.
not been
And
used before, has it?
that was a big debacle too, because everybody was talking about, well, how come she didn't have the boob window? It's like she was a different design altogether.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the same person. It was supposed to be a completely different person altogether.
I think if you're going to defend the boob window, you also have to defend the fact that there might not be a boob window. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
just
get
say
them
all versions of Power Girl would have a boob window. Let's face it, and
Not-
that's a bit ridiculous.
And there's some things that don't need to be psychoanalyzed, or else we'll have long discussions about how all the
Show
male
would never
costumes
end.
were
Yeah.
designed in the late 70s, early 80s with the totally plunging neckline.
Vampirella. I mean,
It
Vampirella.
only there was so much
Boom.
beefcake back in those days. You just,
Well,
even when they
Invisible Woman had a
redesigned
boob window.
Submariner's outfit so that he wasn't shirtless, he had this big plunging neckline. So and a bare shaveless chest, or shaved chest.
Well, he's a swimmer, so it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Exactly.
But Invisible
down.
Woman once had a boob window in, I think, the 80s.
Yeah, the 4.
It was a 4 that was like cut
Right.
out, and you can see her
Yeah.
cleavage. They need to bring that back, but that's just my opinion.
Again, if you're going to bring that back, you might as well bring it back as Malice.
Mm.
Give her old dominatrix, outfit back and let her run around saying
Hardcore dominatrix out
Man.
there.
I'd totally buy that,
Jeez.
though.
Wow. All right.
Some people out there would.
It
Absolutely.
is Sunday morning, isn't it?
Yep.
Holy cow. All right.
Last time we looked.
It's only taken us an hour and a half to get
some
up
people see
topic.
it ridiculous and other
Now
people
we've
don't.
gone from our favorite stories to the most ridiculous stories. So,
Hey,
anybody else
I
got a
like
favorite story
ridiculous
they want?
stuff.
Jason Moore yesterday sent me a picture. He's at the Akron convention this weekend, and he ended up picking up a whole set of the box sets of EC comics. They had a retailer that actually had them there.
Cool.
And he ended up getting Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, The Haunt of Fear,
Nice.
Weird Science, or Weird Fantasy, and Weird Science Fantasy for one price.
That's great.
And it was, and they're all in A1 shape. All of the boxes are, but
Awesome.
the way those books were made and those slip covers, I've literally dropped them on the floor, and it's never hurt them. On the corner, my Haunt of Fear right now is holding down my freezer down here in the basement, because they're that heavy and they're just that good. So, and then I've got the
literally chilling.
Tales from the Crypt and the Vault of Horror holding up a shelf on my bookcase down there. That they're just that heavy and that good. Just well
I
done.
got that. I found that chamber right there, Chamber of Darkness #1, this last week in the collection. I haven't even opened it yet.
That's got the Gravedigger story in it from Steranko. That's
Does
just
it? Okay.
absolutely
I'm gonna
classic. I
definitely
believe it
look
does.
at
Yeah.
it. Awesome. I'll have to look at that one.
Just phenomenal.
Awesome.
And that also was reprinted in the Les Daniels book as an example of the great stories that have
Awesome.
come through comics over the years.
Awesome.
He was lucky to get a lot of really good reprint rights to a lot of great stories. Well, you're going to print them in black and white, and you're going to print them about half size as a usual comic. Oh yeah, you can do that. So, there's a Reed Crandall Blackhawk in there. There's a very early Superman story in there. A Batman story in color. The first Two-Face story is in that book. It's just a great book, and his notations are really good too on that.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I found my giant size man thing yesterday too.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, don't let Brian K. Morris hear that. As far as he's concerned, there's only one giant sized man thing. He's the owner of it.
Yeah, I found a couple.
Is
of
that
them,
wearing a
actually.
fez too?
Yeah.
There you go.
This isn't #1 or anything, but these are some of
How did you get those?
them. Birth. No, it's okay. This is
Oh.
these were in a collection that I've had for a while. And I've been
Okay.
looking through a
You
few
just
things.
ran across them.
I went through. I've been going through boxes slowly because it's such a big collection. But I've got like number 1 and all that, and then I've got and everything was going on with Werewolf by Night. I ended up putting the man thing.
Do
on the
you
shelf,
think?
so.
Sorry, I'm gonna pose a question
Mhm.
to everyone. Do you think it's nostalgia or us, the way that we look things, or is there really a difference between how impactful covers were, like 30, 40 years ago, rather than they are today? Because I find a lot of covers today a little bit boring.
Yeah.
Even if they're executed brilliantly, they're just a bit dull.
Well,
They
you
don't
know
seem
what?
to jump out at me.
What killed that is the direct market.
Yeah.
Because back in the 60s and 70s, when you were competing on that spiral rack, you had to look good.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, if you look at those old Archies, everything's solid color. The first third of the book is a solid color so that you could see it from a distance, and you can have other comics overlapped on top of it and still be able to see.
I kind of had that thought. I had that thought in my brain anyway, and then Ted brought out those 2 covers, and like we're all just in these little postage stamp windows on the main window, and they sang.
Yeah.
And
Just like,
yet
wow,
that man
bang,
thing.
just,
Hang on, let me blow that
It
up.
just jumps out at you like.
doesn't it? Yeah.
That's
Jumps
also
straight. Look
the
at those
power
eyes.
of Mike Plug too. Mike Plug
Right.
is another
Mike Plug is
phenomenal.
amazing.
Yeah,
Incredible.
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
think that's
but
a
he
Plug
was.
cover there. Who did that? Is that? I would
You
guess
guys
Nita.
guess. I'm not sure. I
Maybe.
can crack it open here and
I
find out.
don't think it's Plug. There's no cover credit on the inside.
I understand what you're saying.
Adkins, E.K. Adkins.
Okay.
I understand what you're
Dan
saying
Atkins?
about Plug, but there were multiple artists that were
Yeah.
doing this, and the way that they coloured them as well. There was just something I just feel there's something more impactful about the way covers used to be.
Well, that
Yeah.
GS Man Thing
it's
1
not
cover
all-
is just totally
Yeah.
iconic. Just
And
an
it's not
amazing
all-
piece. Yeah.
It's not all down to the technique. It's not
Hold that
all
up, Ted.
down to the
What's that one?
literal
The Man
standard
Thing
of
1.
art.
Yeah.
It's
That
like
one or the other one?
That's
other
a
one?
2. Yeah, the other
they
one.
jump out.
Yeah, they do.
This is number 4. That's number.
Oh,
4.
number 4? Sorry.
Yeah. That's all right. I've got the other ones. They're just up on the shelf. I can.
That's
get
got the Hell Cow story in it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's got Man Frog in it. It says so right there.
I can't. Okay.
Randy was
I haven't
correct.
cracked them open yet. I haven't even looked.
Randy's correct because they back in the in the 70s and 60s, the cover was your selling point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You also had a little bit of story on the front cover. Sometimes even speech bubbles, which I used to love on the front of Avengers covers.
But you can say, even now, anybody who's been collecting comics for a while, you can say an issue and an issue number, and that cover pops into your head. Everybody knows what Avengers 4 looks like.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what Fantastic 1 looks like.
Werewolf by Night 32.
If you want-
Even Marvel
can't get around it.
Spotlight first appearance of Ghost Rider, you get that
If you look,
idea of what the cover is.
if you look at the Watchmen issues, the cover begins the story. The covers of each issue begins the
It's
story.
technically the first panel.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
That's by design. That's part of the genius of that book. So that's
I mean,
that's just a work, a work of masters all around. That's something you read every couple of years just to remind yourself how great comics are.
Yeah.
I think the answer to that question is kind of both nostalgia and just the fact that covers have kind of been downgraded.
Yeah.
Because I don't have any examples to show, but there's this fad in comics now, and I don't understand why, where instead of putting here, I'll just grab, the crow. Instead of putting the title up here where you can see it, they started putting the title down here.
Yeah.
And when it's, sitting on the shelf at the store, they're usually like that.
Yep. And again, the direct market really killed that because the majority of these books now are being bought for pull list. So they don't care what's on they don't care. They don't stick to a rigid formula for covers.
Give me
because
one
you
more.
can
I'm
stick
going to
that
show you a
logo
better
wherever. Watchman's got the logo down the side, but you can still tell from the first third what it is.
Yeah.
Let me blow that up here, Russ.
Yeah. This is Watchmen Noir.
Yeah.
So look at the white space.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man. That's awesome.
Pick that up a little bit. Sorry,
But
about
that's the power of line work right there, and Gibbons' ability to do this. That owl machine just pops behind that thin line. And that's also, in my mind, that's heavily influenced by Mobius. I think Mobius did a lot of that stuff way back when.
Yeah.
That's
But
just phenomenal.
beautiful
And the heavy
blacks.
use of shadows. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that picture down there. That's just
just great stuff. That panel is classic. And there's some of these panels that just still stick out in your mind. You still remember the layout of even though the story's not that great, the artwork is phenomenal of Camelot 3000 when Excalibur comes rising out of the cooling pool of a nuclear plant with the Lady of the Lake's hand on it. Just phenomenal stuff. I got to get that book.
Yeah.
I do.
Russ, to answer your question here.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's like Mitch kind of made me think about it. It's like here's a perfect example of what you was referring to. This is Wonder Woman 296.
Yep.
You know, this actually has you invested in the actual story because you know this is, kind of give you an idea of what was in the going to happen in the issue. Now fast forward to modern day. This is Wonder Woman 68.
Right.
Yeah.
This to me is nothing more than a pinup. It tells you nothing about what's inside of the actual content of it. But
now
yet
that was a variant cover as well, right?
Huh?
That was a variant cover.
That is correct.
Yeah.
But this is the more sought after one,
right?
Than the original A cover, because the A cover was kind of like, it is what it is. It's some type of action scene, but it didn't tell you what was going on in the story. But people are gravitating more towards this for actual cover now. Well,
that's actually a knockback again against not just the distribution or the direct market system, but also the level of collectability anymore, because that's why you're seeing all these variant covers. It's not nobody, but there's a large portion of people buying comics that don't even bother to read the interior. They just send it in to get it slabbed.
Right.
And that's definitely a book with a great piece of pinup art, like Joe said, that you get slabbed with a number on it that you can put on a shelf and show to people that stands out because it's such a great piece of art.
I mean, it's beautiful. It's obviously technically it's probably superior.
Oh
but,
yeah,
but the other one,
more example of what the A covers would look like in that series. This is like issue 50. Now, mind you, they went back to like the regular legacy numbers, so they are like 594 and 794, I believe. So they're almost at 800.
That's issues. Beautiful. See, I like that.
Better cover.
That's a nice cover.
Beautiful.
It's a nicer cover, but this is not indicative of what you will find inside of the actual book itself. Same thing with this one here. They're interesting covers, but it's not a good indication of what's inside the story like it was in the day. It's like the covers don't always necessarily match up to what's in the content of the book.
However, I would say that both those covers would pop off a stand if we were talking about newsstand again,
very much
rather than comic shops. That would pop off a stand far better than the beautiful cover the variant cover that we were showing.
And there were times, and Wonder Woman was one of those. I know Superman was as well, where the editor got a hold of an expert cover artist. For Superman, it was Neil Adams. For Wonder Woman, it was Brian Boland, and just told to send us some covers. And it didn't matter, the story. They'd write the story around the cover.
Yeah,
that reminds me of 70s disaster movies.
Bad. Yeah, it does.
That's not bad. Great. But there's so much on there, though. I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean,
there's a lot on that cover.
One of the things, like in architecture, when we used to draw prints, you could tell when something was an error. Now, when you do digital, everything's digital. You'll miss something on a floor plan. You'll miss something because it's just too perfect. With these, this is from like the 1970s. This is from about 10 years ago. But it shows you the capacity of what we can do. I mean, this is traditionally done, and then this is digital. And then, I mean, if you compare it to something like that, boom. I mean, this is like, I think this is 60s. So it's like, wham. I mean, it's a whole nother, it's just so different. It's just so different.
That Brave and the Bold covers by Neil Adams again. Yes. And that's got that character, Russ, that Phantom Stranger character.
Yeah.
They crossing over with it.
So yeah, but you can see that, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I enjoy this. This is beautiful. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Do you
just don't.
notice as you go from right to left, it
Mhm.
gets moodier.
Yeah. Right.
So it's
But, I mean,
almost
look
like
at-
it's talking to you about the comics industry in general.
Yeah.
As you move from right to left.
And I know
Very,
it's not
very
Hulk
true.
versus Batman, but I mean, it's incredible. This, the impact of this as when I was a kid to this still pretty. I mean, this is still pretty impactful, but it's not comparable to this. It's just different. It's just a different.
Again, the one on the left still comes off like a pinup to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't really
Yeah, it does.
truly illustrate a story per se. You could write anything around that
Yeah.
to sell
Yeah.
a story, as opposed to the Tales to Astonish. Tales to Astonish is actually giving you something that is actually happening in the story itself.
Yes.
But it's still a great piece of art, as is
It is.
the Neil Adams Brave and the
Mhm.
Bold cover there. Just an amazing composition. Look at that.
Yes.
Get all those characters in at once. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, and a lot of it's clean. That's what I mean by that. It's almost antiseptic. The line work, because it's digital. That's what I like. I like the grit to it, if you want to call it that. But yeah, just something interesting the way that they were all compared there. But
yeah.
Anyway,
Can I show you this Watchman? I don't know whether you've seen Watching the Watchman, whether you've got it's the Dave Gibbons book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got that one.
And
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've seen this panel, all of you, but look at this. Look at this page. This is absolutely incredible. And
Mind the nudity. I see you're about to show Dr. Manhattan.
well, it's from the rear. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's all right. He can get drilled.
It's just such a wonderful drawing that I
The
wish
back's acceptable. It's the front that we might have a YouTube problem with.
yeah,
I just wish
We
you
don't-
hadn't. I
we
just
don't
wish
want to
you
see
had-
his giant size man.
I'll never forget
Right,
seeing it
size
the first
man
time
thing.
at the theater and watching how many people ducked when he turned quickly.
Yeah, they just couldn't handle his stethoscope.
Well, I won't show it then. I'll let you all drool
This
later.
is the Glenn laughter cam.
Sorry. No, seriously, though,
Okay,
it was
go
all
ahead.
like, whoa, Good thing it wasn't in
It was,
3D.
it was in I was about to say it was in 3D.
I guess we'll never know.
Oh,
I couldn't
Nita's
remember,
not
did
in
they
the
was
chat
just not
today.
they
Sorry
was
to
just
see
not
that.
randomly acting to a breeze. They was actually dodging.
Give me just a second here to do a little housekeeping.
Those look so good, Russ.
There we are.
Looks great,
you.
dude.
Thank
I
you.
love those covers.
We're just talking about covers. Like the one on the right is the one I went with the crowdfunder.
Give me
Yeah.
a second here.
I wanted to have
There we
I
are.
wanted to have more going on, as
Yeah.
it were.
Beautiful.
This one is about sitting on not on a newsstand, but in a bookshop. So I had to make it. This is more impactful from a distance than this
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But this one says more about the story than this one does. Neither of them are anywhere near that Hulk cover that is really sort of part of the story and part of the whole action. But it's an attempt to do something along those lines.
And-
But I can understand why covers do change and do vary dependent on where you're selling them and who you're trying to sell them to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I do prefer this cut. This is the one I had to do, but I prefer this because it's just got it's got a big fighting stuff on it.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what you want. That's what
we've-
you want to see from covers. You know.
We've strayed off topic and we're close to finishing up. But let's talk about covers on the next Comics by
Yeah.
Night, which I have to record anyway. I mean, pre-record. So let's plan on doing that sometime this week, where we'll go over what makes a great cover and what great covers are out there, what iconic covers. Maybe we'll even do that again here next week on Sunday Funnies, where we'll pull up our favorite covers and talk about how iconic and how fantastic they are.
Okay, so you saw Marvy's question here.
I did,
I
Marvy.
was about to use
We'll get there.
example for the way that I would look at it and the way that these two covers came about here. These two covers are actual scenes from the actual story inside of it, This one is dealing with the creation of a new character that happens in issue number 7, and this one is actually a variation of another scene that had happened inside of the actual issue. What I try to do is like when I have people do variant covers or covers in general, it's like I actually give them the script. It's like, unless they've got some other idea that was like fun and whimsical that kind of, you know, meshes that going to be like a one-off, I try to get them to do something that's related with the story and try to make it something like somewhat impactful in that aspect here. So that's kind of like the way that I look at covers as a whole here, because anybody could, you know, could draw a pin up and put it on the cover, but the idea is to sell the story, not really sell the book by just eye candy, if I could say it in that aspect. But, you know, coming back to trying to find some type of way to have an impactful scene on that cover that relates back. This is kind of rather drab and everything, but it kind of illustrates that, you know, the whole Frankenstein type, somebody is created. While this one is like, you know, there's an emergency scene and everything, and she's trying to figure out what's going on, and that actually happens inside of the book in a different format.
And Joe, since we got the camera on you, why don't you tell folks how they can find you?
Right there at that link tree here. So we want to go ahead and call it a day here. So you can find me at that link tree, linkttree/Billboat, where you can get to anything and everything that I do here. That includes with the company website, the actual podcast that I do on Saturday evenings, YouTube pages, DeviantArt pages, everything to that magnitude here. And before we go, just for those who are curious, as far as what was the final outcome of the sketch here, there it is.
Wow.
Cool.
Nice.
Lovely.
So that's how you get in contact with me.
Mitch, tell folks how they can find you.
Find me, well, here, Linktree/Celtic Cross Studios, where you can find basically all my links, my online comics, my website, everything. And this Tuesday, you can see me on Dispatches from Outside the Box with C. Michael Lanning and Jared Lockhart and guests. I think, were we talking about this weekend or this week? I can't remember.
I have no idea.
Oh, yeah, Magicians. That's right. Yeah.
They'll be covering some subject. What are they doing?
Magicians.
There you go. Ted, tell folks how they can find you.
TedDaviesArtistry.com. Everything Ted Davies Artistry. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. You can find me there. Tuesdays, 10 a.m. I'll be doing Back to the Drawing Board. And we're going to be talking a little bit about all the different prints that I've got out for sale for the holidays and my artwork. So check that out.
There you go.
And we will see you there. Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Russ, tell folks how they can find you.
You can find me at russleach.com. There you go. All my social medias, all the links to Only Death Can Save Us. Second book's out in the new year. It's just we're on the end of the production now. You can still get the original one. There's only a few left, but you can pick up that at the Only Death Can Save Us 2 campaign, or you can pick up the new edited version with some slightly different content over at Amazon.com, or you can pick up Batman, which is somewhere around here, over in local stores. I think issue 5, which is the second issue of my run, comes out in a few days' time in the UK, and then will be available again all over Europe in December. I think actually in Germany they're just running it as Batman magazine, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
So that's it. You can find me at russleach.com.
Cool.
Oh, great.
You're gonna go out and start looking for all the different, or ask folks to send you the different translations. That would be kind of hot to see.
That would be cool. Yeah, I'm hoping to see. I'm hoping I'd be able to get one. I'm my fingers are crossed that the publishers, the Panini over in those countries will actually send me a copy. But who knows?
You never know. Yep. Glenn, tell folks how they can find you.
Usual places on Facebook and all those kind of things, but mainly get all my books and magazines, including this one that I published with that other guy in this program today. Get all these from Amazon. You get everything there. I got about 10 books out, science fiction, children's books, everything. on Amazon, but if you want to get my work, go to Amazon. If you want to get in touch with me, probably through Facebook is best.
Great. And folks, I want to thank you so much for being part of the Sunday Funnies for the 6th of November, 2022. We hope you enjoyed yourself. We hope you have your favorite comic stories too. I wish there was a little bit more engagement in the chat about what your favorite comic stories are. We'd love to hear from you. You can contact me anytime at thezimcast@gmail.com. Stop by on Wednesday evenings at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I do the ZimmCast. We talk about the industry, the business from a more opinionated angle, point of view. Most of the time, Mitch is there. You never know who's going to show up from week to week because I don't know who's going to show up either. So we'll see what happens this Wednesday on the ZimmCast, 10 p.m. on the Indie Comics Network over on YouTube, on Facebook, and especially at the indiecomicsnetwork.com. You'll see a bump for that as we go out the door today. You also next Friday, I should say, Friday morning at 5 a.m. there will be an episode of Comics by Night, and we'll be talking about our favorite covers and what makes them so great because we just decided to do that, and it'll be great. It'll be great. So stop by then, 5 a.m. Comics by Night, Indie Comics Network again, indiecomicsnetwork.com. Sunday, and we'll be back again Sunday morning. Hopefully most of us will be here. We hope that you are here as well. Daylight savings time. Our audience was really great for this episode. So we deeply thank you all for stopping by, and we hope you enjoyed your stay. And we hope that you'll come back on a regular basis. If you haven't subscribed over on YouTube, even if you don't listen to it on YouTube, go over to the Indie Comics Network page on YouTube and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. You never know when another program's going to pop up. There's a lot of programming over there. Maybe some of it's not for everybody, but you're going to enjoy some of it, I'm sure, especially if you enjoyed this program. And you'll want to be part of the Indie Comics Network. We're here to help you. We're here to entertain you. Any thing that you need to ask, any subject matter that you want to see covered, feel free to contact me or to follow the directions on the little bumper that we have as we're going out. So everybody, we want you to take care. Any last words from anyone? Oh, by the way, you can find me if you go over to Indiegogo right now, in demand. Look for that Rift Writers campaign over on Indiegogo, still in demand now. There is an Arrow Comics tier there where you can catch a lot of the Arrow Comics books that have just come out recently. Let me blow myself up here. There we go. Boom. Like Paragon, which is really my version of Superman that I hope everybody will enjoy. It's a great book that I'm very proud of. Also, Calico of Shard that has artwork here by C. Michael Lanning. Some of the best stuff he's ever done. It's a great fantasy title. I love writing it. We'll get more of that here in the next upcoming year. And HeroBot Zero, which you'll see a lot more of in the upcoming year. It's the adventures of a 3-foot-tall giant robot as he defends his city from giant monsters. So it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. He's a grumpy old guy, just like me. Only I'm a little taller. So, and he's got a lot more rockets than I have. So.
When's issue 2 of Paragon?
As soon as I can get it lettered.
Okay.
It'll be available. Keep watching the Arrow Comics campaign. Also, we're working, Luke Stone, who's part of Arrow Comics, who does hybrids and Rift Riders, is working very hard on getting fundmycomic.com off the ground. So we're going to have our own platform there for comic buyers or for comic folks like us, especially independent alternative folks, to promote their works, where we don't have to worry about whether or not next week somebody changes their pants and decides certain things or aspects need to be shadow banned or whatever. And that which seems to have become a problem on both crowdfunding platforms lately. So, and shame on Indiegogo for doing that. But that's something we can talk about on Wednesday.
You get Elon to buy it.
I think so. Yes. Well, we'll see. We'll have to see what Elon ends up doing with Twitter. But
blowing it up.
I love the exchange he just had with one of our I think congresswomen here, Cortez, where she said, we got to pay $8 for a blue check mark on Twitter, and he tweeted her right back. It says, thank you for your opinion. Now pay me my $8.
Yeah.
That's great. Anyway,
They don't like they've got to pay $8 for being blue check marked. They don't like the fact that we can all pay $8.
Some
Right.
people are afraid
That's
to
what
be
they don't like.
authenticated. That's the problem.
Yep.
But anyway,
That's right.
folks, take care, everybody. Read comics. Make sure you try to leave this industry better than what you found it. Definitely visit your retailer. Go to those comic conventions. Look for those boxes on the floor. Look through those magazine boxes, especially. You never know what you're going to find. Especially you see a Titan reprint book there, and it's $10, I'd say, or under. Buy it. Just buy it. You won't regret it. It's great stuff. If you've never heard of Halo Jones before, just buy it. Just buy it and read it. Jeff Hawk has got a reprint. Garth's got a reprint book out by Titan. Amazing stuff. Modesty Blaze. If you've never read any of Modesty Blaze, boy, are you missing out. We're going to do a Sunday Funnies real soon about comic strips. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Can I just say that in the next issue of Comics Unlimited, which is coming out in a couple of weeks, I have an article about Halo Jones.
Yep.
There we go.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome.
I have an article about Arrow Comics.
Yeah,
Mhm.
lots of good stuff in there.
Joe, you got an article in the next Comics Unlimited?
I believe so. What did I talk about this time? I talked about
I don't know. You ran
diversity. I thought about diversity in
yeah,
comics.
that's right. Yeah,
You
About
do.
the what?
Diversity in comics and how marketing is kind of messing that stuff up.
There you
Yeah.
go. It's going to be a great issue.
Good stuff. Good
When's it
stuff.
coming
Joe.
out?
the best one so far.
When's it coming out?
A couple of weeks probably.
Couple
Yeah,
of
before
weeks.
the holiday.
Great.
I'm
Yep.
just
And
waiting.
can you-
I'm just
you can
waiting.
get that on Amazon, can you?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm just waiting for one article that should be
just-
ready this week.
I'm just
And
glad I
and
was
it's,
the last
and it's
one.
not Randy.
It's
he's
not
done
me. Thank
Yeah,
goodness.
we've done that one.
I'm gonna work up my next one real quick and send it.
Good.
I swear I will. All right,
Good.
everybody.
Thanks, Randy. Thank
Take
you.
care. Thanks for being part of Sunday Funnies. Thanks everybody here. Deeply appreciate all of you for showing up. You're always welcome on whenever.
See
Good
ya.
seeing everybody.
Pop in. Scott Rosema, where are you? Brian K. Morris,
Never
where
heard
are
of it.
you?
Yeah, they're just fantasy people, aren't they?
Roland
Lightweights.
Man, we've got to schedule some time, buddy. And there's a lot of
but-
other people out here. If you want to be
We-
part of this program, get a hold of me. The
That-
ZimmCast at gmail.com.
That's why. I mean, have Brian Morris and Rosemary been on the same show?
Yeah.
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 Is
What
it
we'll
the
do
same
is I'll
person?
teach everybody how to put their separate cameras up, and we'll do cutouts of them, and we'll just stick them up.
I can show you right now what that'll look like. Give me a second. I can show you what hang on.
What do you think?
I can show you right now what that'll look like. Right there. That's what that would look like. Because they'd go, yeah, I'll be there. And then
Yeah, we'll do the cutouts. That'll be
we
great.
love you all. Yeah, we could do cutouts of them. That
Yeah,
would be great.
I think so. That should be really
With
funny.
the extra
right?
camera.
Or just
Picture.
yeah.
We could wear,
just still
wear masks.
photographs.
We could wear masks, couldn't we?
What do you
Yeah.
think about that,
Max-
Scott? Thanks. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
And the cutout will still be late.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Have a
Does
great
it done,
week.
yeah?
See you Wednesday or Friday or next Sunday. See you around. Take care.
See you
Read
guys.
comics. Read alternative and independent comics, especially ours. We love you all. See you soon.
See ya.
Have a question or comment for us to address on the show? Have a topic you want us to talk about? Email us at indiecomicsnetwork@gmail.com. Want your comics to arrive in pristine condition? Head over to GeminiComicSupply.com and save 10% on your next Gemini mailer order or anything in the Gemini Comic Supply store. Use coupon code RAGIN10. That's RAGIN 10.
Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready?
When your timeline reaches its Armageddon, what's a kid to do?
I'm not a...
Snag the keys to your mom's experimental ship, of course.
That's not quite how it happened.
Drift aimlessly in the rift between dimensions, trying to figure out how to operate it.
Now hold on a sec.
Pick up a few hitchhikers,
Hello.
and maybe solve a disturbing mystery that could lead to the destruction of reality itself.
You know, if there's time... There's always time.
I'm not so sure about that.
Get in on the adventure with the Rift Riders on Indiegogo.
close me up? On what ground?
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
Look, everybody's entitled to be an idiot.
You pay